Thank you everyone for joining us today for New England Real Estate Trends for 2022. My name is Kim Murphy and I'm a marketing specialist for the Riverwoods Group. And today's presentation hopefully will, inform you all of the current landscape of real estate and help you move forward with any plans you might have. So before we get started, I'm just going to share a little bit of information and housekeeping. This is a webinar, so everyone is on mute. We welcome you to submit questions through the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. You can submit those at any time. It might be at the top or at the side, depending on the device that you're using, actually. But we welcome your suggestions on how we might improve, and you will receive a short survey, the follow-up email for this, and we would appreciate if you took a minute to fill out the 4 short questions. Let us know how we did for you today, and if you have an idea for a future topic, please let us know. So the Riverwoods Group is the largest independent not-for-profit group of continuing care retirement communities in New Hampshire. Our purpose is to bring community purpose and peace of mind for older adults with the promise of excellent healthcare if and when it's needed. We have 3 campuses. Riverwoods Exeter is our flagship community, and there are actually 3 communities on that site: the Woods, the Ridge, and the Boulders. Riverwoods Manchester affiliated with the Riverwoods Group in 2016 as Birch Hill, and completed an official name change to Riverwoods Manchester in 2021. Riverwoods Durham is our newest community, and that opened in the fall of 2019. Besides being a beautiful place to live, a continuing care retirement community is an insurance product. So that means our contracts are regulated by the state of New Hampshire, and our financial performance is also reported to the state annually. Because you are considered prepaying for your future healthcare needs, a portion of the entrance fee for the year that you enter and your monthly service fee each year are tax deductible. So it's really a smart financial decision, but it's also a lifestyle choice. We welcome older adults who are still living independently, who just want a different lifestyle, free from the burden of home maintenance and chores, and just looking for a change. Our communities offer amenities like transportation, housekeeping, meals, a packed calendar of fitness classes, lectures, trips, which all lead to increased social opportunity and less isolation. But it also affords you the opportunity to stay in control of your life. And what that means is that you've got a plan for your future healthcare needs. You're not making a decision in a crisis, and you're not leaving anything to chance that your family members would be burdened with making a decision for you. So you're staying in control of who's providing your healthcare, where it's going to be provided, the availability, and what that's going to cost. But that's enough about Riverwoods. We're here to learn about the climate of real estate. So I'd like to introduce to you Bill Wydecker, who's a broker in his 40th year of real estate in New Hampshire. So he's been involved at the state and national level in a number of different positions as a realtor. And I guess I'll turn things over to you, Bill.
Well, thank you, Kim. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be here again. I can't believe that it's been another year that's gone by since we were last all here together to talk a little bit about the real estate market in general and a little more specificity on real estate in New Hampshire. And happy to field any questions that you may ask in the chat at the end of this very brief presentation. But I got a lot of information to share with you, and I also have good news. While you'll find it educational, there's not going to be any written exam or quiz. So there's that takeaway today for sure. So let's talk about the real estate market and we'll start by saying, what is a realtor and this idea of representation. We're going to talk about the market history, the conditions currently, and we'll look a little bit at the conditions of the past because I think it's helpful to see where we've come from and how far we've come. We're going to talk about what a buyer's market is versus the seller's market. I think everybody realizes the market we're in now across the country is really a seller's market. Home buying and selling, what that process looks like. And then we'll have some time reserved for Q&A, and we'll have you all out and done for recess by 2:00 this afternoon. So first of all, Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors, and they are adhere to a strict code of ethics that they swear to as an oath. And not every licensee is a realtor. Important to know. It is a membership, and not every licensee is a realtor. There are multiple forms of agency, and we will talk about the fact that its disclosure is required by state law. In most cases, here today, we're going to talk about representing you potentially as a seller in the future, or potentially as a buyer. But essentially, we will talk about agency. Prices continue to rise. I don't think there's anybody out here on this call today or on this webinar today, and there's almost 80 of you here, that would guess that we're in anything but a seller's market. It is, we have seen prices rise to historic highs, and that's for 2021. And also the March numbers that just came out are the highest in the state of New Hampshire. The median sales price is the highest on record ever. And so we see the number you'll see here was 395,000 at the end of 2021, 10 years of consecutive increases. The March numbers tell us that median price for March over last March, month over month, was $440,000. We don't need to look back too much further than 2012, 10 years, when the median sale price was not $395, it was $202,000, a 96% increase in 10 years' time. Interest rates, while rising, were still relatively low. I remember back when I started in the real estate business in 1983, the prime interest rate was 21%. Some of you remember those days. And mortgages were 16% fixed. And at the time when I started in 1983, New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority was coming out that spring with low interest money, which was 13 5/8 fixed. Can you imagine? Not that long ago, just 39 years, but interest rates by today's comparison are very, very, very affordable and still relatively low. However, we are now tickling over the 5% rate. And last year at this time, we were in the high twos. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. Close to 3 last year, 5 this year so far. No sign of slowing in the market, however. March of 2022, we hit the 440,000 median price, highest of all time, as I said. I love these next these next handful of charts because it gives us some really cool data. I'm just going to ask you to go to the highlighted statewide number for starters. And you can see last year that we sold 17,465 single family non-condominium homes in the state of New Hampshire. That is a really big number. And even though inventory was considered low active, and what I mean by that, low active means nothing was sitting on the market, because you can't have close to a record year in sales. We were down a little bit from the previous year, 5.5%, and that previous year was a record number. You can't have that without having plenty of houses to sell. They just were not sitting. They were going off the market very, very quickly. And you'll notice that prices, if you just look at that right-hand column, and you can see all totaled out, as a state, we were close to 18%, but you can see what certain counties, their percentage increase for the year. Look at the fourth county down, Coos County. 40% increase in median sales price last year. 40%. That is not a typo. And reason being, if you look at it, it was the least expensive median sales price of all the counties in the state. And also it is a popular, has become a popular second home county. And some of the other counties, the Lakes region, some of the counties, North Conway and so forth, the Mount Washington Valley area, prices have gone to a point where now Coos County has become very attractive also for second home communities, driving that price up by 40%. So 18% increase as a state last year. That's a big number, 18%. I love this because this gives us a little bit of an idea of where we've come from. 1998 does not seem like it was that long ago, even though it was 24 years ago. The median price in the state of New Hampshire was $127,500. And you can see from 1998 to 2005, a 112% increase in prices. And we went from a median of 127.5, but in 2005, 270,000. That's an important number I want to draw your attention to. 2005, $270,000. And you'll notice all of those units sold, none of them exceeded what we sold last year in terms of total units. And if I'd asked you that at the beginning of this webinar today, do you think we've had better years? You'd say, well, I'm sure we have, because there's been no houses on the market to sell. There were plenty that came on. They just didn't last. So 112% increase, that's the unsustainable boom when I look back at it and what we've titled it. And then we get to where we are in 2006 to 2011, which is the big slide. We went down by 24%. And you'll notice here, look at the units sold in that second column starting in 2006. We're going to about 10,000 and change, between 10 and 11,000. And you'll notice the median sale price. It starts off, you go back here for a second, 270 in 2005, drops by less than 2% in 2006, less than 2% in 2007. And then you see, we were all there for it, 2008, the Great Recession. And you see what happened in the marketplace. 10% drop followed by a 10% drop, a little bit of a bounce by 1 percentage point, and then another 6%. So that's a 24% drop during that big slide period. And then, of course, you'll notice the climb out, or the recovery from 2012 through 2021. I would just draw your attention to these last 10 years and just look at the fact that we went from just under 13,000 units to 14 to 16 to 17, and you'll notice 18,449 in the midst of a pandemic. We hit a record number of units sold. And that's really where people started to realize we can live anywhere. We can even work from home. And I just have to be very candid. In March of 2020, if you told me this was what the year was going to look like, I would have said you were joking. So we've noticed a 96% increase in prices, going from 202 median price in 2012 to 395,000. And you just heard what I said is 440 in March of this year. It really is this. It's the inventory. It's all about the inventory. There is a shortage of housing, and that's contributed to this record ramp up in prices. I've never seen in my 40th year now in the business, I've never seen this kind of increase in pricing. I don't believe it's sustainable, but I don't really see anything that tells me we're going to see a bubble similar to what we saw in 2008. That housing crisis bubble that was really built up from the early 2000s to 2006, and then of course the financial reversal that took place in 2008. Really is about the inventory. It's supply and demand. Nothing harder to internalize than that. Inventory had been high 8 to 9 years ago, but most of that's been bought up, and now we have the lowest active inventory in recorded history. Now, if you're in the home selling market, decreasing inventory comes with increased prices, and that's great for those that have an asset that's appreciating like this. And I'm just so thankful for even those that bought houses a couple of years ago, thinking, oh my God, am I paying too much? How low is the inventory is the next question. Well, we had a shortage before the pandemic, and then of course 2 years ago we saw the loss of jobs. We saw this anxiety that was involved with the home buying and home selling process. Some people decided to stay put, and of course that's helped to contribute to some inventory shortage as well, and the shortages become a crisis. And again, what that's doing is it's putting such pressure upward on home prices that people are saying, hey, you know what, maybe we should execute on the decision now and lock in the numbers that we're seeing, because not everybody believes that these numbers are going to stay there either. Hard to know. If you were to ask me, I would not be able to tell you that prices are going to go up further or that they are going to go down either. It's just hard to know. My experience tells me the moment you step out on a limb, sometimes you're out there all by yourself. And so the market always will determine where we're going. We do know that there is a inventory at crisis levels. And again, to show you how low it is, this gives you an idea. You can look the bar charts that you see here in the blue and the gold. Single families back in 2020 there were 3,391 single family homes on the market in March of 2 years ago. You can see it's a third that number today. And as I said, 2020 was a low inventory market to begin with. Condominiums in the blue, again, you see similar, about a third less. 846 in 2020 versus 293 at the end of March. These numbers are statewide, and you don't need to look back too far. This graph at the bottom, you can notice it's starting from 0 to 15,000. And if you look at between 2010 and 2011, we had just under 15,000 single family homes on the market compared to 1,100 today. So you can see that inventory has been an issue, steadily going down from about the mid teens. 2015, you can see that trend line moving steadily downward. And so there's not a lot to choose from in the active inventory. Moving forward, the difference of a buyer's market for a seller's market. Well, as you may guess, a buyer's market, there's plenty of houses to choose from. The buyers have got all the leverage. They have a great selection. And the sellers are more likely in a buyer's market to offer incentives. They would pay for closing costs. They would do repairs. They would, they would close more slowly or more quickly, depending on what the buyer wanted. They would include things they weren't planning on including. You look back at when was there a buyer's market, go back to inventory and look at 2008, 2009, 2010, and you get the drift. You can see when the inventory is that high, choices were more plentiful and properties stayed on the market a little longer. Now, a seller's market is this: low inventory. Sellers have got all the leverage. There are multiple offers happening in just about every listing. We had one, just as an aside, in the city of Manchester that came on the market last week. Over the weekend, we came on at $300,000. Over the weekend, 38 written offers on the property, 38. And we accepted an offer in excess of 20% higher than the list price of $300,000. So that gives you an idea of even in this market with the interest rates increasing, 38 buyers to one house, 37 of them disappointed. Buyers are likely to offer over the asking price, and that's happening fairly regularly if the property is priced competitively well. A balanced market is usually where we have 6 to 7 months of inventory. We are nowhere close to that. We are talking about active inventory in the amount of in weeks and not months. So we've got about 3 weeks worth of supply of inventory, which means this: if nothing came on the market from today forward in 3 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, it would all be sold. It's really all about inventory. Here you have it. As I just said, we are 0.8 months of inventory. Again, about 3 weeks of inventory on condos and single family homes. Just an unbelievable number. Lawrence Yun, who is the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, said that at the end of the year in 2020, it looked like it could be a breakout year based on the fundamentals. And he wasn't wrong. I don't believe at the time we felt that 2021 was going to be what it was, but he always felt that the market was exceptionally strong, and then we hit the pause button in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. But that pause button wasn't very long. It recovered quickly and immediately. Other parts of the country were a little more slow to recover than we were, because much of New England real estate was considered an essential service. And so people were allowed housing as an essential service. People were allowed to move much more freely and sell property and rent property. And New Hampshire, I think we were maybe in full lockdown, considered non-essential for maybe a week and a half. And then the governor removed that status, and we were back in the essential column. Markets recovered. As I said, the stall was brief. Many people still need to buy and sell. That happens every single year. You noticed even in the very tough years, there was 10,000, 11,000 houses, single family homes sold in the state of New Hampshire. And that's because people always have life decisions. People have job transfers. Their families get smaller, their families get bigger, there's divorce, there's death. You understand my point. There's all of these things that make housing decisions come about. And so that happens year in, year out, regardless of what's going on in the economy, regardless of what's going on in the world. Sales declined briefly and came back very strong in 2020. And inventory, as Dr. Yoon said, we might see some recovery a little later in the year. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't see it on the radar screen anytime soon, I must say, only because the buying, I check every single day on a rolling 7-day basis. And I noticed that buyers are still outpacing sellers anywhere from 1.5 to 3 to 1, depending on the week. So that just gives you an idea how vibrant the buyer market is. If you're buying, pick your spots. Prices are increasing, but there's still very unique opportunities out there. The interest rates are still low. Yes, not as easy to find. That is for sure. Sellers, well, prices are historically high. Inventory is historically low. You know what that means. There's more multiple offers. You've got the leverage. Well, and the best time to sell is now. For a lot of reasons. Number one, it's spring, but we really haven't seen this sort of seasonality in the marketplace in the last few years. And really pre-pandemic seasonality was because inventory levels even 3 years ago were low. The seasonality was not quite like it used to be 10 years ago, and where once the snow was off the ground, the people were ready to put their homes on the market. It's a little less so today because people were like, we can sell and stay in the house for 6 months if need be, because buyers are willing to let us stay. If you're a seller, well, you got to get ready. If you're going to sell, that's choosing a realtor, getting an idea of what your home is worth, getting some sense of value. And keep in mind, here's what I will tell you. If you had a home valuation done even 3 months ago, 4 months ago, that number's changed, ladies and gentlemen. It's changed. When you have prices going up at 18% a year, you're increasing at 1.5% a month. So another thing is inspecting the physical plant of your property, just making sure that things are in pretty good order, and a licensed real estate professional can help you there, and preparing and getting the property ready for the marketplace. Still important, even though you think, well, do I have to do anything? It's still important because it's just not whether your property will sell, it's whether you will sell at its maximum price. And oftentimes there's not a lot that's needed to be done to get a house ready for today's market. And that takes us to questions, Kim. I moved through that sort of quickly because I wanted to leave enough time. I know there's 80 plus people that have signed in here today, and I want to make sure we've got time for questions that are in the chat. I'm going to stop the screen share. Do you think that's good? And then
there's one before you do that. Now's a great time for people to enter questions, but there's one more slide. I just wanted to talk about our next event coming up while everyone's taking a moment to enter their questions. It's Getting Smarter About Growing Older. It's hosted by Kathleen Toomey. She is the host and creator of a podcast, Seniority Authority, which talks about like a million different topics related to aging and researching and just making the best decisions possible in a number of different variety of scenarios. So she kind of puts all of her research together into a presentation. It's just fascinating. I would encourage you all to register for that. It's on June 1st. You can scan the QR code there, or there's a link in the chat function that you can click on and go to our website to register for that today. So now we're all set. If you have any questions, you can contact us or visit riverwoodsgroup.org for more information. And now we'll jump into questions.
Hey, Kim, I have a question for you. Is it a guarantee if I attend this that I know I'm getting older? Was it a guarantee that I too could get smarter?
I believe so. I would guarantee.
Thank you.
Well, okay, you'll learn something. How about that? I would guarantee you that you're going to learn something, which makes
fair enough.
So, all right, let's see. William's asking, what is the most accurate way to use Zestimates?
Oh, that's good. I will. I just had this conversation with a high school chum of mine who lives in Georgia, and he's helping his mother move from Florida up to Georgia, and he asked me the very same question. And there's a lot of artificial intelligence that can assess the value of real estate, and it's getting better. and it's not perfect. So you referenced the Zestimate, which is a proprietary to an organization called Zillow. Realtor.com has its own AI. Many real estate companies do. Even tax assessing in towns and municipalities have AI to assist them in figuring out the value of the property, of any property. New England happens to be the most challenging because the housing stock is the oldest in the country. And I told my friend, I said, in Florida, his mother's property was in a gated golf community of 2,500 houses. Well, when you have 2,500 houses all built around the same period of time, all with very small model changes, square footages are similar. You get my point. Is that it becomes easy because there's so much data of a similar stock to be able to compare. The only thing AI can't do very well yet is determine the interior conditions of the property. Yes, you can make some changes on certain sites to say, well, I put this in and I did this and I finished my basement, and that can assist, but it's not perfect. However, when I sit down for an equity analysis with a client, we use the Zestimate. We look at the assessed valuation. We look at other artificial intelligence estimates of value, because guess what? Buyers are doing the same thing. They're looking at these things to help determine what the value is. And that doesn't mean that that's how you pick your price. It is more art than science, Kim. It really is, because it's not that we don't have enough information on the internet. We have plenty. It's a question of being able to process it and interpret it. I hope that answered the question.
It did for me. So there are a couple of questions about the New England region, and do you have any intel or insight on how Vermont or Maine, coastal Maine, might compare to some of the statistics that we reviewed for New Hampshire today?
Well, I can only just give you, in talking to colleagues, the market really echoes throughout New England. I don't think Vermont really lags behind very much. It may just a little, but not the populated areas of Vermont are just as vibrant. And I've got to believe that, I know Maine is extremely busy. And then, of course, if you look at Connecticut was always lagging behind in its unit numbers in most of New England. And one of the things that really assisted Connecticut was the fact that people started to realize in the midst of the pandemic and the lockdowns in New York City that they needed to move, and they started to realize that being not so far out of the city was a good option. So all of a sudden, Connecticut had a huge rebound. So New England's doing very well. But if they want more specific numbers, Kim, I could certainly do some legwork if people needed to know.
Great. Let's see. So this question, in regard to the inventory chart, why the vigorous ups and downs each year?
Yes. Okay. I know what you're talking about. In other words, it was going like this, like almost like a roller coaster. Yeah. So there is some seasonality built into that. You saw inventory swing up middle of the year, swing down end of the year. So in spite of the fact that we in the real estate business, we always say, when's a good time to sell? Whenever you're ready to sell. We do know that many people wait until I don't want to move in with snow on the ground. And so oftentimes we see this inventory, because here's what happens. Many people put their houses on the market in March, April, May, June. And we've done the research, even in regular inventory markets, that you stand as good of a chance, if not better, by putting your home on the market in December, January, February, March, because there's less inventory. You have less competition. Now all that's out the window because there's no competition at all.
Right. I mean, this line from your presentation, lowest inventory in recorded history. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just, incredible to hear.
Yeah, I heard my wife on the phone, she's also in the real estate business, and she said, we have the lowest active inventory in the history of ever.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. It says a lot.
Yeah.
So let's see, next couple of questions are related to realtor commission, and whether it's based on the asset total value or percentage of the participation and expertise that they can add. So I guess it's how you create your valuation of percentage
Okay,
of commission. That's
I
kind of
think
a-
I think I can tackle that.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna hold on for 1 second. I got something popping up I had a pop-up on my screen,
Oh, no.
but it was it was an antivirus that said, it's time to update your Norton antivirus, and I'm gonna put that off. It startled me for a second. Anyway, back to commissions. I do have to say that in this particular marketplace, where we see how low the inventory is and how frenzied the buyers are, that you'd think, well, it's pretty easy to get a buyer. And I would agree with that. But I also feel that it is not a question of getting a buyer, it's getting the best buyer. And the only way you do that is by putting it on the open market and allowing for competition. And then and only then do you assist by interpreting for the seller client all of the moving parts in an offer as to figuring out what the best offer is. Oftentimes price drives that, Kim. Why wouldn't it? I mean, you want to get the best price, but after that, it's terms. It's always terms. As it company's price. And here's what I mean is the standard purchase and sale contract in the state of New Hampshire has 2 blanks relating to price, just 2 in the purchase and sale agreement. And there's 100 other blanks. There's 102 blanks and only 2 related to price. So all of the other ones are the details. That's where the devil is. And so having somebody to help interpret and sift through all of that. And then, can you imagine having 38 offers and trying to figure out how do we prioritize these? Now, back to the establishing your value. I think if you're a seller, you really want to have that conversation with the broker or brokers that you're interviewing, because I would just say, I'd like to think that 38 or 39 years or 40 years of experience has a lot to say. But what about somebody who's been in the business a long period of time and hasn't done anything to sharpen their saw? They could say, well, let's say it's me. I have 39 years of experience, but I haven't done anything in 10 years. That experience may be outdated. And so don't necessarily sell short those that are brand new, because they may have some innovative tactics and techniques that somebody who has all kinds of experience doesn't. I know this. In my case, if we're not getting better, we're getting stagnant. And if we're getting stagnant, we're going backwards.
All right. So what do you think about mortgage rates? Do you think that they will trigger a price plateau, decline, or it won't matter?
Well, they haven't yet. And I have to, but we're at the very beginning. The Fed has said that they're going to raise the rates, 5 or 6 more times.
Right.
And so I have to say, I don't think that the May increase, if there's going to be one in May, and we say if it's 50 basis points or 0.5%, I don't think that's going to put a lid on the market. But they have said that they're going to work very hard to bring inflation in line. and that's by raising rates. And so it's going to make housing more expensive. It's going to make cars more expensive. Any revolving credit is going to become more expensive. So it's going to slow things down. It's just a question of when. Now, I will tell you that I believe at some point you're going to start to see the affordability index come into play, where it becomes just to a point where some buyers can't buy. They can no longer buy because they can't qualify for a mortgage. That hasn't happened yet, but I do believe, to that individual's question, I do believe that somewhere along the line it will have an effect. It might slow down sales and not and stall prices, or it might just stall prices, and we still see sales moving at a fairly robust clip. Hard to know. I really wish I had a really solid, definitive answer. You know, here's where rates are going to be next year at this time, and here's where the market's going to be. I don't know.
Yeah, that crystal ball would just be incredible to have.
Well,
but we do
my
know
wife and
there's
I put it-
trends, you know.
My wife and I, when we put a deposit on a property in a vacation area about 90 days ago, it's a property that's being built. And so I said to my wife, I guarantee you, we probably hit the lowest point in the market for interest rates. It's getting ready to go up. And
Yes, yeah.
I'm like a little good
Absolutely.
luck charm for the mortgage rates.
All right. So does it make sense to have inspections done on your home 6 months in advance of selling it in order to take care of any problems? I know you brushed upon that, but is there anything else you wanted to add to that question?
So the question comes down to, does it make sense to have an inspection done on your property? Here's what I would tell you. If you know something needs to be done, just do it. Don't have an inspector confirm it for you, because if you know it's got to be done, do it. And if you're going to have an inspection, and there's a problem that comes out of the inspection, you should be prepared to do it, because you're going to be disclosing that if you don't do it. Now, the other side of it is this, is if you don't do any inspection and you're not aware of a problem, how could you possibly be under any obligation to make a repair you don't know of, or that you're not, or a problem that you're not aware of? So it's always a bedeviling question, because if you know about it, you got to do it anyway. You can't say, well, the inspector didn't confirm it, I guess I don't have to do it. So if you know there's a problem, just fix it. And if you're waiting to find problems, keep in mind, there are many buyers right now that are buying and waiving inspections altogether, Kim. In other words, they're saying, we'll buy your house, we'll pay you X amount over listing price, and we won't even do an inspection. That's how much we want it. Think about that. So, which is one of the biggest things sellers worry about when they get their property under agreement is, oh my God, the inspector is going to come in and I'm going to have, $20,000 or $10,000 worth of repairs. And
Yeah.
oftentimes properties aren't being inspected. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. What I'm saying is that it's a thing.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
what the
good
market's doing.
barometer of how eager people are. And, I found in stories recently, people don't need to go in and repaint or, do the remodel. The buyers will want to do that themselves, and make it their own in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, the best example I can give you is you gotta have a little bit of a walkthrough with your realtor. And the reason being is because they can counsel you before you spend money. I do believe that some preparation is still necessary. There's a saying in our industry, Kim, paint is $50 in the can and thousands on the wall. So, good clean property will bring you more offers, and more offers brings you higher prices.
There you go. All right. So in a private sale, to arrive at a price, should both parties get a separate appraisal?
Well, again, so in a private sale, I would say first of all, you should get an evaluation as to what your property's worth. And a buyer, that would be up to a buyer. The ultimate determiner of what your property is worth is not what a buyer is willing to pay, but what the buyers are willing to pay in this market. My point is a simple one. If you've only got one buyer, how do you know they're willing to pay top dollar? They might be, but you don't know compared to what other offers you have because you don't have any others. Now, there's something to be said for private sales, because you'll notice I mentioned one that just is the most recent one that happened. It sold over 20% over the list price. And that's not uncommon what's going on right now. 10 to 20% for properties that are, under $600,000. That's what we're seeing out there. It's a little crazy. So I would say if you've got somebody you want to sell the property to, and price is not that huge of a factor, and you don't want to put it on the open market, you like the person you're going to sell the property to, and you can come to an agreement, so be it. Yeah, you should get your property appraised. I don't think in this current condition, in this current market, that it's the best way to get the most amount of money.
Okay.
I think you got to be prepared to put it on the market.
Okay. So this question has to do with changing capital gains taxes and prospects for passage, and whether or not there might be pending legislation. Do you have a thumb on any of that information?
So I am not aware that there's any prospect for any change in the capital gains tax with regard to personal residences. That law has been in effect since the Clinton administration, which was single individuals could sell their primary home if they'd lived there 2 out of the last 5 years, and they could exclude $250,000 in gain, and married individuals could exclude $500,000 in gain, Kim, which meant no capital gains tax. Well, now with the prices that have escalated so much, there are people that are starting to get concerned. Maybe $500,000 is not enough, because we might have another $500,000 subject to taxation, or another few hundred thousand. And I have not heard of anything out there that tells me we're going to see any passage. But I'm going to be at the Washington Realtor meetings in a week and a half, and I'll hear more about what's going on there. We have an annual Realtor meetings down there with our congressional delegation, so I may hear a little more about it, but I don't know of any immediate relief.
Okay. Yeah, I could see how that would be an issue in a lot of situations. So what is your opinion on listing with a broker exclusively? And is there a set commission for all realtors? Which I think we kind of spoke to earlier.
So first of all, I have no issue with somebody listing with a broker exclusively. As a matter of fact, I think it's the highest and best way to engage somebody. You hire somebody that you trust, hire somebody that you've either been referred to or that has had a good track record. And there's plenty of ways to figure that out. But exclusive listings allow for the highest and best relationship between the client and the realtor, because the realtor owes, in an exclusive relationship, the highest of all fiduciary duties. And also there's an obligation on behalf of the client to the realtor or the agent, and an obligation from the agent to the client. So I have no issue there. Are rates fixed? No, they are not. They are not. They are negotiable. And you can find companies out there that will list property for a fixed fee. There are many that list at a percentage of the sale price. And again, Kim, that is really all between the conversation you have with the the realtor or realtors you're hiring. And they are not fixed from, they're not fixed from company to company or from agent to agent within the company. In many cases, some companies can fix their own fees for themselves and say, while you work at this company, here's our fee structure. But most allow for negotiation within the company and negotiation from company to company. So it's very negotiable.
All right, good to know. So we have one last question. Another one just came in as I said that, of course. What does it mean to sell a house as is?
Oh, okay. So it's kind of a term of art in the legal world, which says, I'm going to let you have what I've got in the condition it is. You're buying it with all of its beauty and all of its warts and all of its issues as is. And, sort of caveat emptor, buyer beware. You're taking it the way it is, my friend. Now, oftentimes, it should not be confused with sellers that are aware of latent defects. In other words, if you have a defective property and you're aware of it, you have a duty to disclose. You're not going to be able to hide under the I'm selling it as is. Now, that having been said, in most cases, nobody's looking to hide anything. They just don't want to do any work, and they don't want to be obligated after the fact to come back and do any repairs. And so there are times where they will say, you're buying it as is, where is, in its current condition, with all of its defects, and that's what that means.
Okay, it's good to know the difference. There's probably some liability involved in certain cases. So what about Airbnbs? Are those contributing to the lack of inventory in your experience?
Well, you obviously, many people in this state are aware of the town of Conway and the fact that they banned Airbnbs. And then, of course, state of New Hampshire is looking at a housing bill that would overturn that and allow for property owners to rent their properties on an Airbnb basis. I don't believe that it's contributing in large measure to the shortage, because keep in mind, in most cases, people are renting like if I had a vacation property, I wouldn't look to rent it all the time. I'm speaking for myself, but I would look to potentially rent it some of the time. And so I would still want the property. I would still want to use the property. And yet it's just being used by somebody else other than me during that time. I think the housing crisis in terms of inventory is a much bigger issue than Airbnbs. Might it have some effect? Very small. We are 5 million housing units short in the entire country. And the saying is as many as 20,000 in the state of New Hampshire is what's going to be needed. Now, 5 million versus 20,000 is a big difference, but we're going to need to overbuild by 500,000 houses in the country for the next 10 years in order to catch up on the volume. So inventory is going to be an issue. Whether it'll be like this, it remains to be seen, but it's going to be an issue for some time to come.
Well, there we go. It's good to know if you're going to be a buyer here. So is it better to price low to get a bidding war or to price higher to get a better price?
Well, again, more art than science in that answer, but here's what I will tell you. Is that if you are a bidding war seems in this current market to be creating far higher pricing than pricing too high and then having to come down to find a market. So you're running a little bit of a risk by pricing higher than the data might tell you, because what that means is if you have to come down when in a market with properties been on the market 30 days, people aren't saying, did they get the price wrong? You know what they're saying, Kim? What's wrong with the property?
Right. Why
Or
doesn't,
nobody else wants it. That's been on the
Yeah.
market too long. Maybe I shouldn't either,
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha there. Okay, what about having a grandmother's suite? Does that add significant value to a home?
Yeah, so an accessory dwelling unit is the term often. I like them. I don't believe for a minute that they are harmful in the marketplace. And as a matter of fact, what we're finding today is that my grandmother grew up with us in my household, and so she lived in our house. And this was not an uncommon thing for me to get my arms around, even as a 21-year-old. When I started in the real estate business, I didn't see it as a foreign concept. And the way I look at it today as a baby boomer is that it really comes down to this: is we're talking about multi-generational housing. In other words, oftentimes we may be the one buying the house and letting our kids move in with us, or letting our grandkids move. You get my point. Is I don't think there's anything wrong with it. As a matter of fact, if you have the opportunity and the desire to do something like that, that's not gonna hurt you at all. It is not a negative in this marketplace. People will figure out what to do with the extra space if they don't need it.
Right,
I should say, if they don't need it for another generation.
right.
Yeah,
Yep.
because they'll always need it for something.
There you go, there's the Airbnb. Or an art studio or something, right? So
Yep, you got it.
is it good sale value to put money into improved landscaping? Curb appeal.
Well, it's the first zone of the property that buyers make a decision on, right? Because this is what happens, Kim, when people drive up to the house. They start subconsciously saying, this is how I'm going to live here. So if the landscaping's pulled together, they're going to have a much better feeling about the property right from the beginning.
Yes, that first impression, right?
Yeah, people start judging, they judge on what they see, but this is the point. People judge what they can't see by what they can see. And so, meaning I can't see all the systems in the house, but if I feel like the rest of the exterior is pulled together, in other words, the landscaping looks good, the front porch or the front entry looks good, the walkway looks good, I'm already getting a good feeling about the property. I do believe landscaping does help. I don't think, the very first year we moved into our house, it was a brand new house, and we spent almost $40,000 in landscaping. And I knew that if we had to sell it in a year, we would never get it back. However, 11 years later, when we did sell the house, it was one of the things that probably helped us, is the place looked so great. So I feel like landscaping is a big plus. Just don't do it with a year to go if you're going to move in a year.
Get to enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one last question. We're almost out of time here. I guess this is asking for your input on big ticket repairs versus disclosing and selling. Like, where would you draw the line?
Case by case basis. So it really is you might say, I'll give you one example. We had a house that was, it was selling in a town where a house of that size, we thought that selling it without air conditioning might be a problem. And so what we did was we just got quotes for the air conditioning, and we're able to provide that. We disclosed that, the house is not air conditioned, and here are the quotes to do it. And so that we had we were able to contain the buyer's opinion of what it might cost. Because oftentimes buyers might take something and think, well, it's going to cost me X. They might not want to pay X less for the house. They might want to pay X plus Y less for the house because they're going to do the work. They don't want to uncover another problem. In this market, I think it really comes down to, case by case basis, because there's so much data out there that tells us you may not have to do the big ticket items these days.
Sure, the agent will know the buyers they're working with and, you know, what sort of contingencies they're willing to make. So that's really sound advice.
Yeah.
So it's 2:00. I think if you have any questions, you can still enter them in the Q&A. We'll reach out to you separately. We can forward them to Bill. His contact information is in the top of the chat. And he is with Keller Williams Fine Homes. The office is located in Bedford, New Hampshire. And I'd like to thank you for your time today, Bill. Excellent.
My pleasure.
So much great information. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thanks, Kim.